What's going on, everybody? Happy Saturday morning to you. I'm really jacked up for this. This is something I haven't done before on this venue, so I'm like, let's go. Let's get this done. Let's do this. Now, let me explain a little bit about who I am and what I'm about. My name is Bart Nollenberger, and I will tell you that what we're going to talk about in the next 15 or 20 minutes is how you and I transform ourselves to be the person we want to be. I mean, I just believe that what you'll hear here in the next 15 or 20 minutes will be a game changer. Now, who the heck am I? Well, my name is Bart Nollenberger, and I am a father of 10. My wife and I have been married for a little over 10, almost 10 years, actually. We're a blended family. And between the two of us, we have 10 kids and soon to be 14 grandkids. So I'm absolutely blessed. There's some of those, you can see that screen. There's some of those on the screen right there. We just had our 13th grandbaby, and God is good, man. I've been in automotive for over 40 years. I've been a leadership coach for automotive. And I've also worn every hat in the dealership, from sweeping the floors, as my dad was a dealer, to working in the parts department. My mom was actually a dealer, to being a parts driver, to be moving my way up in sales and finance and sales manager and GSM and general manager. And I had my own used car dealership for a number of years too. In 2013, after doing a number of years of training in dealerships, I heard about this guy named John C. Maxwell, who I'd known about through a previous dealership I worked for, that he had a program where I could become certified in his content. And by me becoming certified in his content, what that really meant too was that I was able to take his content around the country and put it into, in my case, car dealerships. So I took these leadership principles and I actually did sales training with them for the next 7 or 8 years, and then decided that the industry needed help with leadership principles. So I took those principles that Maxwell taught, and I also put them in stores for leadership. As a matter of fact, I do boot camps. And one of the boot camps I really love to do is on the topic, Developing the Leader Within You 2.0. This is a book that changes lives. It's a 12-week boot camp that I do for dealerships, and it's a lot of fun. I also do sales training boot camps. And as a matter of fact, we're doing one in January in Phoenix. We're going to be doing one in probably end of February, early March in San Diego. And these are 2-day events that we get to do for salespeople as well. And this particular topic, what we're going to talk about today, we talked about to a dealer group in Northern California yesterday. So I wanted to share it with you. Now, I'm also, just so you know, I'm a DISC certified consultant, and I'm also a expert in emotional intelligence. I'm a life coach. I'm an executive coach. I'm a leadership coach. And I don't use or say any of that lightly. I tell you this because I want you to know that I've kind of had some experience doing this. I love what we get to do. I love changing lives, and we'll talk about that as we go along. Also, by the way, I got a podcast, and my podcast is called Keep the Change, and it is on Spotify, where I talk to automotive leaders. I talk to people that have broken through with challenges in the past. I talk to people of faith. It's a breakthrough podcast, again, called Keep the Change. Now, one thing that I know in my world is, and I was told this early, I was told it in 13 when I joined the Maxwell leadership team. One of John Maxwell's principles is, if you want to change your life, you have to change your thinking. And what I know is that rings so true. One of my mentors was a gentleman who started the Maxwell leadership team, and his name is Paul Martinelli. Paul Martinelli has an incredible track record as a salesperson and as a business builder. As a matter of fact, he has a company called Empowered Living, and he's got some incredible courses on that platform, in which I am licensed to teach a lot of them. But Paul actually started with Maxwell, I think it was around 210 or 211, where he knew John's landscaper, and he arranged a meeting to meet with John through the landscaper. And in that meeting, Paul brought to John Maxwell an idea to build a team of coaches all over the world that would share Maxwell principles. And the result of that, frankly, that meeting was negative at first. But within 2 weeks, John came together and his team agreed on it, and they started the Maxwell Leadership Team. Now, what's interesting about that is they started with nothing. And today they have over 56,000 members that are coaches all over the world. I think it's like 164 countries that they represent. So it's been an incredible story. And what I want to share with you a little bit here is that I want to share with you some principles that Martinelli had that really shaped his sales force. Paul worked for people like Bob Proctor, if you know who Bob is. He worked for, even if you don't, that's who he worked for. He worked for people and with people like Les Brown. So he has these principles that are rock solid. I'm going to share with you those today. And here's the deal. Paul has a sales training program, and I was following and mentoring with Paul and really looked at Paul's success. And I thought, I really want to learn what Paul's principles are, and I want to take those to automotive. And some of the stuff we're going to share today are principles that Paul taught me and teaches others. Paul has many times talked about, we obviously, same thing, change your thinking, change your life. That's actually a common theme in neuroscience. It's a common theme in all religions. And he showed us how we can do that through a program that was called the Stick Man, that was designed by Dr. Thurman Fleet. So I've talked about this in my book. I'll talk about it in a few minutes. And Paul teaches it, in his sales training programs. So first of all, I think the first question that you and I have to ask ourselves is, who are we? And I think that's a huge piece, because the reason I say that is you and I can't reach our max capacity unless we know that question. We also, as we're going to talk about later here, talk about what do we want. So who are you and what do you want are going to be big questions here. Now, as you see on the screen, there's a big old head with a little body. And in that middle of that big head is a line right in the middle. And you'll see that it says the mind. And what we see here is that this is the premise for our thinking. Let me talk a little bit about that. We have two parts to the mind. One of those is the conscious mind. Now, the conscious mind is your thinking mind. It's what you're aware of. It's what you say to yourself. It's what you see. It's what you hear. It's what you get out of a situation. It's your thinking mind. It's your way you talk to yourself. That's your conscious mind. And then we've got what's called the subconscious mind. Now, the subconscious mind is that mysterious mind, that other than conscious mind under the surface. And a lot of people don't necessarily understand the subconscious mind, but the subconscious mind is critical to our success. Let's talk about it. See, the conscious mind, again, being the thinking mind. What's that mean? It means what you think is who you are. Now, let's talk a little bit about that. Have you ever told yourself, hey, I'm a champion salesperson. I am all over it. I believe that I'm great at this. Have you ever done that? Or have you ever said to yourself, man, I suck at this. Man, I'm struggling with this. Either one of those things can be true, because you are what you think and you are what you verbalize. Yeah, really. Matthew Maltz came up with a book in 1964 called Psycho-Cybernetics. And in that book, he talks about you and I cannot exceed our own level of self-belief. We can't exceed our whole own level of thinking. So that thinking mind is a big piece. Why? Why is it that we are thinking, what we say, what we think has such a big impact on our results? Let's look at that. The subconscious mind is what's known as the emotional mind. And that, again, is where your emotions come from. So let's get a little deeper with this so you have an understanding. You and I choose our thoughts. I am a champion. I'm a loser. I can do this. I'm not sure if I can. You and I have been on both sides of that fence, right? We choose all the thoughts we decide that go on in our head. Now, here's what I'm thinking. You and I both probably have like 20,000 thoughts that go in our head, right? That's a lot in a day. How can we choose all those thoughts? We can't. But here's the deal. What if you had a negative thought? When you capture that negative thought, when you're aware of that negative thought, if you grab that negative thought and literally brush it off your shoulder, a friend of mine once said, it's your shadow. It's that you suck. You're not going to be any good at this. Why are you even trying? Some of us that are believers in Christ might call it the devil. Some of us might call it the shadow. Whatever it is, it's that negative stuff going on in your head. If you and I can't get rid of that, we're never going to have the kind of life that we deserve to have. So we choose our thoughts. Be very careful about your thoughts. I don't know about you, but I've been pretty, as you're watching this or as it's live, I've been pretty impressed with the stock market the last couple of weeks. And I look at it every day. I have an awareness, an inventory of my stocks. In my bank account, I have an inventory of how much is in my bank account. That's the same way it should be for you and I. Carefully paying attention to those thoughts, paying attention to what we believe to be true, pay attention to what we believe are lies. Now, that is another course for another time, but I got to tell you, a great book. If you're a believer, if you believe in Christ, a great book is Winning the War in Your Mind by Craig Groeschel. Now, again, some of you watching this, you might not relate to that, but that book really gets true on how to change our habits, change our thoughts, get rid of the stinking thinking. But remember, what I want you to hear right here today is you and I choose our thoughts. Now, in that emotional mind, here's what's going on. I got to tell you a little story. We had a heavy rain in our home probably about 4 weeks ago. And we don't get many heavy rains. It was windy. It was crazy. And we live in the desert. So again, you don't get a lot of that. But on this particular day, see, because we don't get a lot of rain, I didn't know that we had a leak in our roof that was going through to the attic. As a matter of fact, with the pouring rain, water was forming in the attic. And what happened with that too is with that pressure, it put a hole in the ceiling and it started pouring through to our living room. Oh man, what a mess. Now, the first thing I did is panic. And then I realized I better go get a bucket. So I grabbed a bucket and I put a bucket in there and it filled up pretty quick. Then I had to go get another bucket and it filled up pretty quick. Ladies and gentlemen, that is how your thoughts work. Your thoughts, whatever you choose to think, pours directly into that other than conscious mind. What do I mean by that? The other than conscious, the subconscious, has no filter. So if I say to myself, man, I'm a 20 car a month person, and you believe it with energy, not just super hype, not just acting as if, not just fake it till you make it, but you believe it with every piece of your being, and you say it over and over again, your other than conscious mind will start acting on that behavior. You'll start doing behavior that is congruent with what you say, that you believe, that with your thoughts. If you believe you're a loser, it goes to your subconscious and your subconscious starts acting on that subconsciously. You don't even understand it's happening. And then you wonder why you're not having success. Remember what Matthew Maltz said? That you and I cannot exceed our own level of self-belief. So that self-belief is absolutely critical. That self-talk is absolutely critical. It'll change everything for you because look at this. Once your thoughts cause your feelings, for example, think about it negatively a minute. You choose a thought. You're driving down the road, somebody cuts you off. Now you're mad and you just pull up next to them and you do nasty things. At that point, you've got this anger, and that anger caused an action, and the action caused some kind of result, right? It might not be the result you want. And that could go in the other direction too. Let's say you say, man, I'm a 20 car a month person. You start thinking like a 20 car a month person. You start making 50 phone calls a day. You start calling your past customers every day. You start sending out little cards or gifts to your customers. You're in front of them all the time. That thought, I'm a 20 car a month person, goes to your subconscious. Guess what? Your subconscious is going to find ways for that to happen, create actions. The actions result in victory. Again, be very careful of how you think because you choose your thoughts. Your thoughts choose your feelings are expressed in actions, and your actions bring you results. Now let's talk a little bit farther about what that means for you right now and what you can do to put something in place to get this, to start building your business and take it to the next level. I wrote a book called Keep the Change, and I'll tell you a little bit about why I wrote this book. A number of years ago, I had a problem. As a matter of fact, my problem was that I weighed 150 pounds and I had a $5,000 a month cocaine habit. And I'm not proud of that. It was an awful period of my life. About 8 months previous to what I'm going to tell you, my daughter was born. And from that moment, I started looking out of desperation at ways to get out of this addiction that I was in. One day I got fired from a job as a finance manager. The next morning I was crying like a newborn, and I got an intuition to call a treatment center. And within 2 hours I was in that treatment center. I won't tell you the whole story now. If you want to know it, I'll tell you. But within 4 weeks, I had graduated from that treatment center. And today I've got over 39 years of sobriety, one day at a time. Today, you saw my beautiful family. I've got victory. Today, my wife and I are co-ministry leaders at a program called Celebrate Recovery, which is a 12-step program and based in our church. And it's biblically based 12-step program. We pour our heart into that. And the reason I tell you all that is because of the victory that came, the keeping the change, the coming from where I was to where I am today. But in the book, I use 12 chapters to talk about the 12 steps of recovery. And I also talk about the 12 steps to become a leader in every area of your life. And I'm just going to cover a couple things, those first 3 steps today, because I'm believing, even if you're not an addict and you're just watching this to become better at selling, these 3 things can help you get on the way to doing that. Okay. And one of those things is, you've got to make sure you ask yourself better questions. Tony Robbins says, the quality of our life is determined by the quality of our questions. And we're going to start asking ourselves some better questions. That first question is, what do you need to admit? No. Look, I get it. You're not watching this necessarily as an addict. You might be watching it just as, I want to know how to sell 20 a month. What do you need to admit about your work ethic? What do you need to admit about making phone calls? What do you need to admit about studying your craft? What do you need to admit about having a Mamba mentality? When you and I admit something, it starts us on that road to get to the next level, whether it's recovery or becoming a superstar in what we do for a living. You see, some people do it, some people don't. You ask better questions, you're going to get better answers. As we talked about a minute ago, you think better, you're going to get better results. And we're going to start thinking better by the questions we ask. What do you need to admit? If you're watching this, which you obviously are, write that down somewhere or make a note of it and do it after we're done. The next question I want you to ask is, what do you need to believe? And that's the second step of recovery. But I don't mean in terms of religion. I already told you my beliefs. They might not be yours. But what do you need to believe about yourself? What do you need to believe to be the best self you can be? What do you need to believe to be a great wife at home? What do you need to believe to be a great husband? What do you need to believe to sell 20 a month? What do you need to believe to get that house that you've got on your vision board? What do you need to believe? The third question is this one. It's also the third step. What decision must you make? The quality of our life is determined by the quality of our questions. We saw that, but the quality of our life is also determined by the quality of our decisions. You make a good decision, you're probably going to have a good result. You make a bad decision, it's probably almost guaranteed you're going to have a bad result and have consequences for that. What decision must you make? And that key word is must, because when you must, you'll do it. What does that mean for you? And I will also tell you this, when my world changes is when I start writing things down. So when you make the decision to write down what you need to admit and look at it, when you make a decision to write down what you believe about yourself and look at it, when you make the decision to write down what decision you need to make, boop, now your world's starting to change because you're changing your thinking. Thus, you're changing your results. And the result of that, all of that, is you have some clarity. You can see better. And when you have clarity about what you want, what your vision is, and frankly, a lot of that clarity is how you see yourself. Because a lot of times when we don't succeed at the level we want to succeed, the reason for that is because we don't see ourselves that way. Have you ever done this where you had everything working and you started to sabotage? You started to blow up all your good things, right? I've done that. Why? Because we see ourselves as like a level 3 out of 10 on that belief scale. Until you and I can see ourselves as a 10, as a superstar, as a leader of men or women, as a great salesperson, as a great father, as a great husband, until we can see that and walk in that and speak that way, we can't be that. And once we do now, we're committed to what it is we want. And when we do it, if we do it every day, we're going to have success, clarity, commitment, consistency. So first of all, now let's start thinking about, we have to take some action. We're going to take a couple little exercises today before we head out. One of those actions that we have to take is to define who we are, and we'll talk about that. And also, what do we want? So let's take a look at that. So you and I, according to the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, have to find that purpose, that defining purpose in our lives. And I'm going to give you a little exercise that you're not going to do in 10 minutes. I would take this afternoon to do it. Just get clear with it right away. And you'll notice on the screen, it says 5 things you want in the next year. I'm believing that you should write down 10. When I did this exercise yesterday, I was in a short meeting and I wanted them to write them down while they were doing it. But because of the fact that you really want to deep dive into this, write down 10 things. Let's double it. Let's be overachievers that you want the next year. And they could center around faith, family, fun, fitness, finances, something fixed like a boat or a car or something. Pick one of those, you might do one for each. I'll give you mine and how mine look. And now listen to the way I say it, because when you write this down, I want you to write it down as if it's already happened, because we're speaking to our subconscious. The subconscious knows only what you tell it. If you tell your subconscious you have 3 eyes, that's all it knows. It flows right down like that hole in my ceiling into the bucket. So what you say, again, you have to be extremely careful with. Here we go. Here's what mine is. And again, these are what I want in the next year, but I'm wording it as if it's now. I have a Bible certificate. I have traveled to Zambia. I'm traveling to Zambia to work in missions. I teach people different principles of the Bible and messages of hope within the Bible. Family, I have an incredible relationship with my wife. We travel, we communicate beautifully, and we're best friends, which we are. And we've got incredible relationships with our kids. We have 14 grandkids. Their relationships are fantastic as they walk in the path of new parents. Fun. We love having fun. We've got a sport court in our backyard and where we play pickleball, and we're together and we have family together and we travel together. As a matter of fact, we are for our 10-year anniversary, we have gone to Bora Bora and celebrated. Fitness, I weigh 200 pounds. I work out every day for an hour. I'm in an elite shape. I don't take blood pressure or cholesterol medication. I feel great. I look younger. Finances, I'm investing with my kids in their businesses and their homes. I'm building new businesses. See how that works? Write it as if it's already happened. Some of that's already happened, but write it as if it is. And when you do that, it goes right to the subconscious. But you'll notice it says because here. What's that mean? If you and I when we write those things down, if we don't know why we want to do something, what the because is, we're not going to do it. Let's say one of those things you wrote down for finances is that you want to sell 20 cars per month. And then I would say to you, because I want to make double six figures. Because, well, I want to get another house. Because, well, our house now is 2-bedroom and we have 4 kids. We just don't have enough room. Because my kids deserve to have a yard and I want a yard for my dogs. Because quality time is really important. We didn't have that when I was growing up. Because I want to be a role model for my kids. I also want to have some time to be able to do fun things together. You get where I'm going. Every one of these has to have a because behind it. Take some time and do that. I'm telling you, it will absolutely change your life. Now, once you do that, you write down those 10 things you want in the next year. I'm going to encourage you to look at those 10 things and find one thing that if it was here tomorrow would change your life. One thing. And then I want you to write under that 10 things. I know it says 5, but you're overachievers in this group. 10 things that you can do to get what that is. Now, let me explain that to you. I wrote down 10 things just like you. I'm going to tell you what my one thing is. That one's at the end of the year, one's a year from now, and one's 5 years from now. Can I share it with you? And I'm going to state it as if it's true. It's December 31st, 2024. I've got 20 new clients since November 1st till now in my business. It's December 31st, 2025. I've got 100 new clients since November 2024 in my business. It's December 31st. I've got to do the math. 2029. I've influenced 10,000 people in the last 5 years on how to reach their maximum potential. I mean, that's mine. What's yours? And guess what? That one thing is my purpose, my definite purpose. Right under that, I've got a because on why that's so important to me. And I've got like 10 becauses. So write your because for that too. You can see at the bottom of the screen. I've got one for each of those. They're all related, but I've got one for each. And then I've got 10 things that it might not do them every day, but can help me get closer to that. Could be 50 phone calls a day. It could be getting on the plane for 2 weeks. It could be doing more social media, whatever it is. I've got these 10 things and I'm really clear with what my strategy is every day to get that thing. And I write it down every single day. It's imperative every day. So once you do that, now you're ready to go. You're looking at it every day. Remember, the quality of our life is determined by the quality of our questions and our decisions. Hey, I think I told you before, I'm a life coach, and I've got a number of people that I coach that are either leaders in businesses or working to be that. And also I've got people I coach that are in recovery, that are trying to get to the next place and get some freedom in their recovery. But here's some questions that I encourage you to ask every day, just like I ask myself. At the end of the day, I want you to ask yourself this question: what did I do right today? Now think about that. We could ask, what did we do wrong? But I don't want to know that. That will show up no matter what, right? The shadow will show up. But I want to reframe it. What did I do right? Because when I ask that question, guess what? It's a question. I'm going to get the answer when I ask the question. Next question I want to ask myself every night: what I learned today. See, Tony Robbins says, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Actually, John Maxwell says that. Tony Robbins says, there's no such thing as failure. There's only results if we learn. Learners are earners, everybody. Next question: there's that word again, what must I change? Because if you can't change something, the Mamba mentality is you must. What must I change? And lastly, the last one is a little bit of a different question in that I asked this when I was having a discussion with a friend and it was heated. And I had to walk in the other room and I had to literally stop. And I was in anger at the time and say, what's my role in this? And by me taking 100% responsibility for that, it turned everything around. I went out to my friend, said I was sorry. And from that, we came together and came up with a solution. So those questions, I'm telling you, will change you. And then there's one more. What's one thing I can do today to get closer to what I want? You already have a list of 10. What's one thing you can do to get closer to what I want? Now, here's the whole goal of this. John Maxwell says, get out of the people pile. Don't just be like everybody else. Don't be invisible. Get out of the box. How are you going to do that? You're going to do that by what you think and what you do. Champions do things others won't do, man. That's just the way it is. Some of you won't do this. You do this, your life changes. It's just the way it is. Hey, let's go. See it. Look at it all the time. Do what you promise yourself you're going to do. Be honest with yourself and be the person you want to be. And that's how you and I are going to get to that max capacity. Hey, if you want to know more, there's a QR code on the screen and a phone number. You're welcome to call me. Love to talk to you. And if you hit that QR code, you can schedule an appointment with me on how to close more. And you and I can talk about that. Also, because you hit that QR code or call me, you will receive a free copy of my new book, audio book. Actually, it's an ebook called Effective Leadership in the Dealership. And I'm excited about that coming out the first of the year. All my information is on the screen. Obviously, I'm on YouTube and also the other socials. And I so appreciate you guys giving me your time and being with me on this. It's been really a lot of fun. So what I know is this. You can do this, man. This isn't hype. It's this. The 6 inches right between here and here is what changes your life. And I look forward to walking you with it. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you next time.